was kind of nice, and I was putting together the plan. Coach put together a good plan. Just got to lock it in now, and I'll get on the same page as we go through the week. But take any questions you have.
Yeah, Kurt, what do you see when you look at that Seattle front? They are only giving up 88.8 yards a game rushing.
Yeah, good front, good defense. They've created turnovers. They're well coached. They have a good scheme. You can see it's a scheme that has a lot of different variables, and they execute it well. So come on in. They do a good job, and it kind of shows in the results.
In the middle linebacker leads them in tackles and interceptions. That was a kind of funny combo there.
Yeah, he seems like he's got some really good hands, good awareness, plays hard, and he's done a great job for him.
As a guy who I know puts a lot of time into keeping yourself physically ready to go, what sort of appreciation do you have for Jake Matthews?
Yeah. I don't quite know where it's at, but it's kind of ridiculous. Anytime you can play that long, stay that healthy, be that reliable, heal that quickly, recover that well, it's extremely unique. I think the genetics have to play a factor at some point. Not just his dad, but his uncle, his cousins. It's pretty incredible, and I would love to do a genetic test on their family and then have it line up against my own and see kind of where the gaps are. But pretty cool deal for him, and I know it means something to him. I think he takes pride in being out there and doing what it takes to be out there when there is a potential setback with an injury, and we'll hope that we can keep praying that he can be out there and have it go a long time up ahead.
What have you seen from this wide receiver room? Just the way that they develop. Just now that you've gone from backup now and just started.
I've enjoyed playing with him. I know that. I enjoy anytime your receivers are professionals and the details matter to them. That always gives me a sense of comfort when I step in the huddle. And we had a play at the end of the first half. I believe it scored. I think it was the play Tyler scored on, and I said the motion incorrectly. In the huddle, it was a little rushed, and I said the motion incorrectly, and David looked at me and said, "That's wrong, I'll fix it." And I kind of said to myself as I walked the line of scrimmage, thank goodness. Like, it's such a blessing to play with receivers who are on the details. Mooney's that way, Drum's that way. Just having guys out there that you can really trust to be where they need to be, when they need to be there. And, as a quarterback, that always gives you comfort and confidence.
It feels like your fingerprints are kind of on this receiving core right now because there's been a little bit of a shuffling of the deck in recent weeks. You mentioned Drummond, guys that are up from the practice squad. How much influence have you had on that?
No, I haven't spoken into much. I think it's more, I guess coaches, evaluators, I'm guessing what they saw on whether it's a practice squad or what they saw from training camp that makes them say, these are the guys we feel comfortable with. But no, I haven't really spoken into much.
But these are the guys that you feel comfortable with.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly like them as players, but Drake's down, so that's a guy I feel comfortable with. But also have leaned a lot on our tight ends, having them in the last few weeks, and our running backs as well. And so no, I think it's just kind of who we as an organization feel best about, and that includes the different personnels.
Kirk, you've obviously led a lot of game-winning drives in your career, and as this team is looking for ways to make that kind of final play in some of these clutch moments, what has been your message to the younger guys on that roster?
Well, I think we all look at our own game and say, what can we do to help? I don't think my first instinct isn't to walk in and say, all right, here's what each of you needs to do better. That's not really how it goes. It's more you ask questions. Hey, what did you feel there? What did you think? How could I have helped you? And you get that feedback. I think, for me, when I look at the final drive, the first throw to Kyle I felt needed to be thrown further. It needed to be thrown earlier. There's things I can do with my footwork, with my ball placement to just make it a much easier catch attempt for him. I'd say similar things about the in-cut to David, that it's two-man. I'm a little aware of the undercut and the need that if I put the ball right on him, it might get undercut by the DB. So I kind of throw it to an ours or nobody spot which ends up making it a much harder catch for David than if I just put it on him. He did such a good job separating with his quickness that I didn't need to lead him as much as I thought. Sometimes you get a guy who in two-man they undercut it, but David did such a good job creating separation that I throw the ball out in front to a safe place. He ends up having to make a much more difficult catch. So, there's those conversations after the game on the bus asking him, sorry I put the ball there, if I let you run through it, that kind of a thing. So you talk through all that, talk through it with the coaches on Monday as well, how footwork, how eyes, how feet, all your ball location can be as good as possible to make it as easy on guys as possible. And then when you do that, and all 11 are doing that, usually, you can string together what you need to get the job done.
What have you seen from Devin Tompkins so far?
I think he runs really well. I think he's another guy that really wants to do it right. I mean, today, we're doing a few jog through, which has a little bit of a lower tempo in one of the periods, and some guys can, including me, can get tempted to kind of jog through it. But Devin was very disciplined, on his footwork and his knee bend and where he was going. And I love kind of seeing that body language from a guy because it tells me, without saying a word, that he wants to do it right. He cares about the details, and I felt that on Sunday, and I feel it at practice on a regular basis.
By the way, is Sills watching the Sean Robinson tape, because that cut was pretty impressive.
It was. He's pretty twitchy, and he shows it on his routes. If you go back to the ones he doesn't get the ball, you can see there's separation. There's some twitch at the top of his routes that he can pull away, and I started noticing that in training camp, and it's great to see it showing up on the real thing now. And I was running off the field laughing because I thought it was a terrible pass. It was down at his shoestrings, and I didn't really let him, be able to catch it and run through it at his face mask. So everybody's happy, and I said, man, what a terrible throw. He made me right and bailed me out. So you love that when a receiver can kind of bail you out.
James and Jalen are obviously off to great starts as rookies. Throughout your career, has there been any kind of trait that a lot of the young pass rushers that you've played with or against who have excelled, that they share?
I think they got to be great pass rushers. They got to, have twitch, and they got to have good, hands and be able to bend and have probably a bit of a menu of rush moves as opposed to going back to the well over and over. They've got to have their conditioning to a place where, as the drive lengthens, they can still rush as opposed to slowing down because they're out of gas. I do think our depth sometimes can help that, where you can rotate guys in who are fresh, who can then, rush with their hair on fire. But they've done a great job, and it's great to see. Rushing the passer is a big deal in this league. So when you can have guys who can do that, it makes a difference.
We had spoken with you a little bit in training camp, just to kind of piggyback on what Will was asking. That you said you kind of wanted to talk more with Pierce and kind of take him under your wing a little bit. How has that kind of developed over the last few months?
His locker is somewhat close to mine, so that makes it a little more convenient. We'll talk every now and then. Saw him in the equipment room last Saturday. We were chatting and asked him about the new dog he's getting, and it's fun to learn about these guys and kind of how they got to where they are and their story. And everybody's got a different story, and that's kind of what makes the locker room so fun. Is everybody's got a pretty cool story, the ups and downs, how they got here, and the adversity they've been through, the good things that have happened to them, and so it's always fun to get to know guys when you can. But James has done a great job.
It's kind of a unique personality, James Pierce Jr.
I would say so.
Yeah.
I would say so.
How would you kind of constitute that?
Well, I think he's young still, so there's still a little bit of you're kind of learning it. We joke with Kobe Bryant too, because he's got a great personality, and he's funny. I can't walk into a room without him yelling from way over the side. He's got some name for me that I can't pronounce, but he yells it. I mean, he'll be across the room, and I'll hear it. It's hard for me to go unnoticed with him, which is awesome. And I look over, and he's got a big smile looking at me. So he's got an awesome chain that he wore to the Panthers game, just outstanding. So. These guys are fun. They I think, too, they help keep me kind of hip and with it, with the culture. It's trying. At least I'm up here. I'm aware of it. I don't know that I can project it, but at least I know what's going on. So maybe that'll make me a cooler dad. But yeah, it's always good to connect with these guys. And the days are just a drive-by sometimes, and you're so absorbed in the football and your body work and all this stuff, and you kind of look forward to the chance to just take a second, catch up with a guy, whether it's at a meal or by the locker or whatever, and just kind of talk about something other than football, because these guys all got a lot to share.
Kind of in that same story of a player in the NFL, it's Sam Darnold's got a basketball story.
Yeah.
And now you're going toe-to-toe with him this week. What have you seen from him just in his development, and just like what he adds to that Seattle team?
I remember he was playing in the Rose Bowl, I believe it was against Penn State many years ago, and I was in the pros, and our season had either just wrapped up, we were in our last week, or going to the playoffs, whatever it was. And I started having an ability to watch college football and not know much, but go, that guy will play on Sundays and that guy won't. You can kind of quickly see that. And Sam made some throws in that Rose Bowl where I thought, okay, that guy's going to be a top 5 pick. It's going to be this year, it's going to be next year. I remember Jordan Love, too. He played Michigan State back when he was at Utah State when nobody knew who he was. I remember watching him spin it against Michigan State, first game of the year, and thinking, like, yeah, he'll play on Sundays. You could just see it the way the ball jumped off his hands. So Sam was that way, and then he's a great example of tough times don't last, tough people do. And he just stayed at it, kept going, and it just sometimes takes getting around the right system, the right coaches, the right teammates, the right organization, and then that ability you've always had, comes to the surface. And I'm happy for him and the way his journey has progressed, and I think he's got a lot of good football ahead of him too.
Do you see any parallels in your story and his story?
Well, I wasn't the 3rd overall pick. I wish. That would have been fun. But certainly, we've had times where we've, struggled, times where we've had to wait our turn, times where, we just have had to stay the course. And I think there's a lot of players in this league, not just at the quarterback position, but across the league, who have had to do that. And I believe that, again, tough times don't last, tough people do, and you just have to keep going and believe that if you do that, good things will happen.
What's kind of the key during the ups and the downs of the season, and kind of like these handful of close losses that you guys have had, of like keeping everyone together,
Yeah.
not getting super down or disconnected?
Yeah, I don't know that with this group that's a big concern of mine. I do think that guys in general are just they're positive people. They like football. They want to be here. They enjoy making plays, having opportunities. So that's not really a big concern of mine, just because of the type of guy we have here. And even as our head coach, his wiring is to be so positive and make it an enjoyable place to work, that guys aren't dragging. They're not, even the sports science, our coaches are really intentional about keeping us fresh so that we can play our best football in December. And so there's a lot of different factors that are, come together to really help us be at our best now down the stretch. But certainly the tough losses, you go back to, what are the inches we can find here and there to make the difference.
So you've been on teams before where you could kind of feel like maybe disconnection, maybe during harder times than not?
Well, I think we used to joke. I had a veteran player when I was younger who said that he played with a pretty accomplished team with some pretty accomplished players, and he said it was, those guys were used to winning, and it was pretty interesting when they weren't winning one year, the mystery injuries that popped up in December. He said we didn't really know what the injury was, but suddenly the guy was out. And I think that says a lot about sometimes the character of people when mystery injuries start popping up. And and so I always kind of took that to heart when I was young as a player, that you gotta stay the course and not look for the easy way out and just keep playing, and doing that, believe that you'll be building good habits and it'll lead to good things.
Yeah, any thoughts on moving up the all-time touchdown pass list?
I mean, when you start putting up names like Johnny Unitas, it's kind of like, really, I don't know. I think it's an honor to be in the same sentence of people like that. I think so much of it is just you got to stay healthy. You got to be out there. I think that's what I've been fortunate. God's protected me over the years to be able to do it for a decade where you didn't miss many games, and then it's something that I think the longevity thing just kind of plays into it a little bit.
How do you feel the offense has changed since you've taken over under center?
I think it's so week to week as to how do we need to attack the defense this week. And with such a small sample size of only 2 games, I don't know that it was just felt more like this is the best way to attack the Jets. This is the best way to attack the Saints. And so you kind of look at it that way. I think if we had a bigger sample size, I could answer that question a little better. But, we'll kind of see where it goes from here.
Anything else?
All right.
It's been a little over a year since you told us you hadn't forgotten how to play the game. You've now had back-to-back weeks where you've had the offense for the full week of practice plus the starts in the game. Do you feel good about having that opportunity to maybe make that point?
Well, I think just the chance to be out and playing, and we talked about it a couple of weeks ago, that it's a privilege to get to do that, and you know, you just have to enjoy. You have to enjoy playing, even if the outcome at the very end doesn't go your way. You've still got to enjoy the grind of it, enjoy the 4 quarters in the rain last Sunday. You've got to enjoy the Wednesday install, you know, and have fun with the guys around you. And I think that's kind of been my focus is we want the outcomes to go in a certain way, but even if they don't, we got to find joy in the day-to-day and in the process and in the game. And I think the last couple of weeks we've been doing that, and it's a challenge every day, you know, to keep that going. Okay, thanks.
All right.
Thank you.